In Smyrna, a night out with friends turned violent. Police say one man was shot and killed by a man he had just gone out to dinner with.
In every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear. Saturday night in Smyrna, Georgia. A group of friends sitting around the table, sharing food, sharing laughs. Tori Harris is playing host like he always does. Good vibes, good company. But one person at that table can't handle being told no. One person at that table is about to turn a simple, "it's time to go," into a murder. Like, how do you go from passing plates to pulling triggers? Make it make sense. Tori Harris was 48 years old, living in the Vinings Brook subdivision in Smyrna, part of Cobb County, Georgia. The kind of man people remembered when they talked about good neighbors. You know the type, always showing up, always present, the one who made sure everybody felt welcome. His home was the spot where friends gathered, where Saturday nights meant good food and even better conversation. And that's exactly what this particular Saturday was supposed to be. Just another evening with people he trusted, people he considered friends. Tori had invited a small group out to dinner, about 5 to 7 people total. Nothing fancy, just a chance to catch up, break bread, enjoy each other's company. These were people he knew, people he felt comfortable around. One of those people was Nakia Williams, 50 years old. A man Tori considered a friend, someone close enough to be at that dinner table, someone trusted enough to be invited back to Tori's house after the meal was done. See, after dinner, the whole group headed back to Tori's place in Vinings Brook. It wasn't unusual. When you're having a good time, you don't want the night to end right away. So they came back to the house, still talking, still laughing, still enjoying the vibe. Nobody was worried. Nobody was on edge. These were friends. But here's the thing about friendship. It only works when everybody respects boundaries. When everybody understands that your home is your space, and when the host says it's time to wrap things up, you respect that. You grab your keys, you say your goodbyes, and you head out. Simple. Nakia Williams didn't get that memo. The night stretched on. Hours passed. It was now early Sunday morning, past midnight, creeping toward those hours when most folks are winding down, getting ready to call it. Tori Harris was one of those folks. He'd had a good time, enjoyed his friends, but now he was ready for everybody to leave. He was tired. He wanted his house back. He wanted to lock up and go to bed. So he did what any homeowner would do. He told his guests it was time to go. Now, for most people, that's not a problem. You recognize the vibe shift, you respect the space you're in, and you make your exit. But Nakia Williams? He wasn't moving. He didn't want to leave. And when Tori told him it was time, that's when things started to shift. Let me tell you something. There are people in this world who cannot stand being told what to do, even when it's completely reasonable, even when it's somebody else's house, somebody else's space, somebody else's right to ask you to leave. They take it personal. They take it as disrespect. And that lack of self-control, that's when things get dangerous. A verbal argument started. Words were exchanged. Tori wasn't backing down. This was his house, and he had every right to ask someone to leave. But Nakia? He wasn't having it. The argument got louder. Tensions rose. And then it went from words to something physical. According to the witnesses who were still there, things escalated into a physical altercation. Pushing, shoving, Two grown men fighting in Tori's home over something that should have never even been an issue. Tori just wanted his space back. That's it. But Nakia couldn't let it go. And then, in the middle of all that chaos, witnesses saw something that changed everything. A gun. Nobody knew Nakia had brought a weapon into Tori's house. Nobody knew that what started as a simple disagreement was about to end in bloodshed. But there it was. A gun. Pulled out in the middle of an argument that never should have happened in the first place. One moment it's shouting and pushing. The next moment there's a firearm in play. And just like that, everything stopped being about words or pride or who was right and who was wrong. It became about survival. The witnesses, Tori's friends, people who came for a good time. They saw it all happen. They watched as the situation went from heated to deadly. And before anyone could stop it, before anyone could intervene, before anyone could talk Nakia down or get that gun out of his hand, a single gunshot. One pull of the trigger. One bullet. That's all it took. Tori Harris, 48 years old, the man who opened his home and his table to people he thought were friends, dropped. Right there, in front of his own house, on the little walkway that led up to his front door, the same door he'd walked through thousands of times, the same door he'd welcomed people through just hours earlier. He didn't make it inside. He didn't even make it off his own property. He was home, and that's where he died. The witnesses stood there in shock, the sound of that gunshot still ringing in their ears. Tori on the ground, Nakia standing there with the gun, and in the span of seconds, a Saturday night that was supposed to be about good vibes and good company became a crime scene. But Nakia Williams, he didn't stay. He didn't check on Tori. He didn't try to help. He didn't call for an ambulance or stick around to face what he'd just done. He ran, grabbed his keys, got in his vehicle, and took off. Left Tori bleeding on the pavement. Left the witnesses standing there traumatized. Left the scene like maybe if he drove fast enough, he could outrun what he'd just done. He couldn't. When Cobb County Police arrived at Tori's home in Vinings Brook, they found exactly what the witnesses had described. Tori Harris, 48 years old, deceased on the pavement right in front of his residence. Not inside, not in the driveway. Right there on that little walking path leading up to his front door, the last place he'd ever be. The officers knew immediately this wasn't a break-in gone wrong or some random act of violence. This was personal. This happened among people who knew each other, and they had witnesses, multiple people who saw the whole thing unfold from start to finish. See, that's the thing about committing a crime in front of 5 to 7 people. You can run, but you can't hide. Everybody saw Nakia pull that gun. Everybody heard that single gunshot. Everybody watched him flee the scene. There was no mystery about who did it. The only question was where he went. The witnesses told police everything. They described the dinner, the return to Tori's house, the good vibes that lasted for hours. They talked about how Tori asked everyone to leave, how Nakia refused, how the verbal argument turned physical. They described the moment that gun appeared, sudden, shocking, unexpected, and they described what happened next. That gunshot, Tori falling, Nakia running. Police had a name. They had a face. They had witness testimony that was consistent across the board. Now they just needed to find him. Nakia had jumped in his vehicle and sped off, probably thinking he could disappear into the night. But this isn't the movies. You can't just vanish when there are cameras everywhere. Cobb County Police pulled footage from surveillance cameras in the area, tracked his vehicle, got information on his movements. They knew what he was driving. They knew which direction he headed. They were building a case even as they searched for him. A warrant went out. Murder. Aggravated assault. Nakia Williams was officially wanted. and police made it clear: turn yourself in, or we're coming to find you. And when tactical teams come looking, it doesn't end quietly. But here's where it gets interesting. Nakia didn't stay on the run for long. Wednesday morning, 3 days after he shot Tori Harris and left him dying on his own property, Nakia Williams walked into the Cobb County Jail and turned himself in. Now, you might be wondering why. Why run in the first place if you're just going to turn yourself in anyway? Maybe reality set in. Maybe he realized that with multiple witnesses, surveillance footage, and an entire police department looking for him, there was nowhere to go. Maybe his conscience kicked in, if he even had one. Or maybe, just maybe, somebody close to him told him the truth. You're not getting away with this. Whatever the reason, Nakia Williams surrendered, walked through those jail doors, faced the officers, and gave himself up. The police were glad he did. They said as much. It's safer for everyone when a suspect turns himself in, rather than forcing a tactical team to hunt him down. Less risk of more violence, less chance of another tragedy. But don't get it twisted. Turning yourself in doesn't undo what you did. It doesn't bring Tori Harris back. It doesn't erase the trauma those witnesses experienced. It doesn't give Tori's family their loved one back or let him walk through his front door one more time. Nakia Williams was booked, charged with murder and aggravated assault, 2 serious charges that carry serious time.
Well, Fox 5's Denise Dillon is live in Cobb County tonight. Denise, police had been searching for that shooter.
Yes, and they knew who they were looking for because there were several witnesses to this shooting. Police had been searching for Nakia Williams, and yesterday morning, he turned himself in here at the Cobb County Jail.
They're all friendly with each other. They had gone out to dinner earlier on Saturday evening.
A group of friends getting together on a Saturday night. After dinner, they came back to this home in the Vinings Brook subdivision.
All still hanging out and just spending time together and talking. It was a rather small group of about 5 to 7 people total.
The night stretched into the early morning hours of Sunday. Police say the homeowner, Tori Harris, asked one of the guests, 50-year-old Nakia Williams, to leave.
The suspect, Mr. Williams, didn't want to leave the house, and there was a verbal altercation that ensued and a physical altercation. And according to the witnesses, all of a sudden there was a gun.
Witnesses told police there was a single gunshot. When police showed up, they found 48-year-old Tori Harris on the pavement.
Officers arrived on scene and they found the victim deceased in front of the residence on the little walking path up to the front door.
The man with the gun took off before police arrived.
The suspect in this case had fled the scene in a vehicle. They were able to locate the vehicle on some cameras that we have, and they were able to get some information on the suspect who had fled the scene.
Police began searching for Nakia Williams. Wednesday morning, he turned himself in. He's charged with murder and aggravated assault.
It's much safer for him to turn himself in than have a tactical team go in searching for him. So I am glad that he did turn himself in.
And neighbors tell me Tori Harris was an all-around wonderful guy. They say his celebration of life service is Saturday. Reporting live in Cobb County, Denise Dillon, Fox 5 News.
Denise, thanks.
Tori in a casket, Nakia in a cell. Tori Harris's neighbors said he was an all-around wonderful guy, the kind of man who made the community better just by being in it. His celebration of life service was held that Saturday, 1 week after he was murdered. 1 week after a dinner with friends turned into the last night of his life. The people who loved Tori had to grapple with a senseless loss. He didn't die in some accident. He didn't die from illness. He died because someone he trusted couldn't control themselves. He died doing something completely reasonable, asking a guest to leave his home. Let me tell you something. This case is a reminder that you can do everything right and still become a victim. Tori wasn't out in the streets. He wasn't involved in anything shady. He invited friends over for dinner. That's it. And it cost him his life because one person at that table didn't have the maturity, the self-control, or the decency to walk away when things got heated. Bad association really does spoil useful habits. You can be a good person surrounded by people you think are good, and one of them can destroy everything in seconds. That's the hard truth. You don't always know who you're dealing with until it's too late. Nakia Williams showed everyone exactly who he was that night. A man with no self-control. A man who valued his pride more than someone's life. A man who pulled a gun over a disagreement and ended a life that mattered to so many people. And for what? Because he didn't want to leave when it was time? Because his feelings were hurt? Because he couldn't handle being told what to do in someone else's house? Make it make sense. You can't, because it doesn't. This is why it matters who you let into your space. This is why it matters who you call a friend. This is why you have to pay attention to how people handle conflict, how they respond when they don't get their way, how they act when things don't go according to their plan. Tori Harris deserved better. His family deserved better. His community deserved better. And Nakia Williams? He'll have the rest of his life behind bars to think about what he did, to sit with the fact that he destroyed 2 families over nothing, to realize that 50 years of life didn't teach him the one lesson that mattered most. Control yourself, or your actions will control you. Period. Here's what gets me about this whole situation. Tori Harris spent that Saturday doing what so many of us do, bringing people together. He organized dinner. He made sure everybody had a good time. He opened up his home so the night could continue. That's hospitality. That's friendship. That's being a good person. And his reward for all that? A bullet. You ever think about how quickly things can change? One minute you're laughing with people at your dinner table. The next minute you're fighting for your life on your own property. One minute you're making memories. The next minute someone's making you a memory. That's the reality of what happened in Vinings Brook that night. Tori Harris went from host to victim in a matter of hours, all because someone couldn't respect a simple boundary. Now, let's talk about what that boundary actually was. It's time to go. 4 words. That's all Tori said. He wasn't disrespecting anybody. He wasn't starting a fight. He wasn't being unreasonable. He was tired. It was late. Early Sunday morning, actually. The man wanted to go to bed in his own house. That's not just reasonable. That's his right. But Nakia Williams heard those 4 words and decided they were worth killing over. Like, really think about that. Break it down. A 50-year-old man, somebody who's been on this earth for half a century, couldn't handle being asked to leave someone else's home. 50 years of life, and he still didn't understand that when you're a guest, you don't get to decide when the night ends. The host does. The person whose name is on the lease, whose furniture you're sitting on, whose hospitality you're enjoying. That person gets to say when it's over. But Nakia didn't see it that way. He saw it as disrespect. He saw it as a challenge. He saw it as something worth fighting about, worth pulling a weapon over, worth taking a life over. And that's the problem right there. That's what happens when people never learn self-control, when they never learn that not everything is about them, when they never learn that your feelings, your pride, your ego, none of that is more important than someone else's life. Let's not forget the other people who were there that night. The friends who came to dinner expecting a good time and left having witnessed a murder. 5 to 7 people saw Tori get shot. They saw their friend die. They watched Nakia pull that trigger and run away like a coward. You don't just forget something like that. You don't just move on. Those witnesses are going to carry that night with them for the rest of their lives. Every time they think about Tori, they're going to see that moment. Every time they hear a loud noise, they might flinch. Every time they're at a gathering with friends, there's going to be a part of them that remembers what happened the last time they all got together. That's trauma. That's what violence does. It spreads. It doesn't just affect the person who got shot. It affects everyone who saw it happen. Everyone who cared about Tori. Everyone who knew him. Everyone in that Vinings Brook community who realized that something like this could happen right in their neighborhood. And for what? Because one man couldn't act right. The witnesses cooperated with police. They told the truth about what they saw. They didn't cover for Nakia. They didn't try to minimize what happened. They stood up and said, "This is what we saw. This is who did it. This is how it happened." That takes courage, especially when you're processing your own trauma. But their testimony didn't just help police find Nakia. It made sure that Tori's story would be told accurately. It made sure that people would know this wasn't some both sides situation. This wasn't mutual combat. This was a man defending his space and his right to decide who stays in his home, and another man who valued his pride more than someone's life. Nakia Williams made a choice that night. Actually, he made several choices. He chose to refuse when Tori asked him to leave. He chose to argue instead of respect the boundary. He chose to let it get physical. He chose to bring a gun into the situation. He chose to pull the trigger. And he chose to run afterward. Every single one of those was a choice. Nobody forced him. Nobody put a gun in his hand and made him use it. He did that on his own. And now he's got to live with it. Or more accurately, he's got to sit in a cell with it. For the rest of his life, he's going to wake up knowing he killed a friend over nothing. He's going to eat prison food and sleep on a prison bed and look at prison walls. And all of it could have been avoided if he'd just walked out the door when Tori asked him to. Think about how many moments he had to make a different choice. When Tori first said it's time to go, he could have said, "You're right, I'm tired too," and left. When the argument started, he could have taken a breath and walked away. When things got physical, he could have backed down. When he felt his anger rising, he could have controlled it instead of letting it control him. But he didn't. At every single decision point, he chose violence. He chose pride. He chose his ego. And ultimately, he chose to become a murderer. That's on him, nobody else. Look, I'm not here to preach, but this case shows us something important about the people we let into our lives. Tori Harris thought Nakia Williams was a friend. He trusted him enough to include him in his social circle. He felt comfortable enough to have him in his home, and that trust got him killed. Now, that's not Tori's fault. He didn't do anything wrong, but it's a reminder that you can't always see what's inside someone until they're tested. You don't know how someone's going to react when they're told no until they actually hear that word and have to deal with it. Some people handle disappointment with maturity. They accept it. They move on. They maintain their composure. Other people, they lose it. They can't regulate their emotions. They take everything as a personal attack. And if they're the type to carry a weapon and have no self-control, that's when people die. You gotta pay attention to the signs. How does someone react when things don't go their way? How do they handle conflict? Do they escalate or de-escalate? Do they respect boundaries or push against them? Do they take accountability or blame everyone else? These things matter. They matter because your life might depend on recognizing them. Tori Harris was 48 years old. He had people who loved him. He had a community that valued him. He had neighbors who said he was wonderful. He had a life that mattered. And all of that ended because one person at his dinner table never learned how to control themselves. Vinings Brook is the kind of neighborhood where people know each other, where Saturday nights might mean hearing laughter from someone's backyard or seeing cars parked outside someone's house for a get-together. It's supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be where you can relax and live your life without looking over your shoulder. But after that night, after Tori was killed on his own property, that sense of safety got shaken. Because if it can happen to Tori, a good man, a kind man, someone who was just living his life, it can happen to anyone. The neighbors talked about how wonderful Tori was. They showed up for his celebration of life service. They mourned him. They remembered him. And they probably asked themselves the same questions we're all asking. How does this happen? How does a dinner with friends end in murder? How does asking someone to leave your house become a death sentence? The answer is uncomfortable but necessary. It happens when people don't have self-control. It happens when pride matters more than common sense. It happens when someone can't handle being told no. It happens when violence becomes the response to everyday conflicts. And it keeps happening because too many people refuse to do the work of managing their emotions, checking their egos, and choosing peace over violence. Tori Harris should still be here. He should be hosting more dinners, making more memories, living his life in that home he worked for. But he's not. He's gone. And Nakia Williams is the reason why. There's no making sense of it because it doesn't make sense. You can't rationalize killing someone over being asked to leave. You can't justify it. You can't explain it in a way that makes it okay. It was senseless. It was preventable. It was the result of one man's inability to control himself when things didn't go his way. So what do we take from this? What's the lesson? Watch who you let into your space. Pay attention to how people handle conflict. Notice who respects boundaries and who pushes against them. And understand that sometimes the people you think are friends are really just strangers you haven't seen tested yet. Be careful out here. Because you can do everything right and still end up a victim of someone else's lack of control. Tori Harris deserved better. His family deserved better. His community deserved better. And somewhere in a cell, Nakia Williams knows that too. Or at least, he should. Rest in peace, Tori Harris. Your life mattered. Your story matters. And hopefully, your death will teach someone out there to watch the company they keep. Because bad association really does spoil everything. I said what I said.